This COVID bill was set to give Americans $600, but in a video tweeted this evening, Trump complained about that the bill gives too much money to other countries and not enough to Americans.
I am asking Congress to amend this bill and increase the ridiculously low $600 to $2,000 or $4,000 for a couple. I'm also asking Congress to immediately get rid of the wasteful and unnecessary items from this legislation and to send me a suitable bill, or else the next administration will have to deliver a COVID relief package.
And like the president, a lot of you agree and say that $600 just isn't enough. Our Paul Dudley has the story.
A day after Congress passed a massive coronavirus relief package, President Donald Trump is calling it a disgrace.
The $900 billion package provides hardworking taxpayers with only $600 each in relief payments, and not enough money is given to small businesses.
The bipartisan measure passed by Congress Monday includes $600 direct stimulus payments to many Americans. But on Tuesday night, President Trump said it should be more like $2,000, adding that the legislation is full of spending on foreign governments and other things that have nothing to do with the virus.
Congress found plenty of money for foreign countries, lobbyists, and special interests, while sending the bare minimum to the American people. It's called the COVID relief bill, but it has almost nothing to do with COVID.
Even before President Trump's video, during this pandemic, people say the $600 just doesn't cut it.
Yeah, that's less than the first time. So basically, the first time wasn't enough. So actually, $600. I mean, you can't really function with that.
I'm glad that some kind of compromise was got to. I think there should have been a lot more going to impacted people.
Whether it's $600 or $2,000, financial experts say there are a few things you should be thinking about when it comes to what to do with your check.
Think of the worst debt that you have, start there, then think interest rates, and then go from there. If you've got those two things taken care of, savings.
President Trump did not threaten a veto, but did say he wants leaders to bring him another bill without the, quote, unnecessary spending. Paul Dudley, Eyewitness News.
Included in the package is a $1.4 trillion spending bill that keeps the government funded and a $300 per week in federal unemployment benefits. Still, the price tag of the COVID relief bill is about half what Congress passed back in March.